John, tell us a little bit about your experience at the TEDx. How was it, man?
Woo, man. Well, I lost everything in the mortgage meltdown and the Great Recession of 2008. And I say everything, I mean everything.
A few years
Yeah.
back, when you were there, and you have shared that you hit the rock bottom. You are at that stage. So what was that like? And how did you manage to get out of it? Because we have seen most of the people, they just stuck there, and they spend their whole life there. They didn't manage to get up. So what was that
Right.
trigger point? How did you get up?
Well, it was, it's a great question. What compelled me to get up is that not letting my loved ones down,
Mhm.
not letting my God down. I realized that, my children, people that love me, wanted to see the best of me.
Absolutely.
Um, I guess my kids, they needed to see the best dad. And I wasn't being that person. I wasn't being that person. And to my God, my higher power. I'm not necessarily a religious guy, but I really believe in there's something, some force that created this earth that is blessing me to live every day. And that experience, and that relationship that I had, I didn't want to disappoint my God by not being all that I could be. And once sorry for the emotions, but it just reminds me of that moment that I had to have a conversation with myself that, I got this one life. I'm blessed with this one life. And I realized that I can choose how I can experience this one life. To all of those who may be listening, who are stuck, who don't know how to, change their circumstances that they don't want. I just encourage you to realize that you have that God-given ability to make decisions on how you want to live your life.
This is that point which will decide, for I think, for everyone, that what you need to do. That is the turning point, and you need to decide that, yeah, man, I need to get up.
Mind map, in my opinion, and my staunch belief, is the best tool to get whatever's going on in here out of it so you can properly see all of the different perspectives of whatever it is you got to think about. In order to love my life, I must get really clear on who I am. Who am I really? What's most important to me, really? What do I want in my life, really? Not on the surface level, but really deep.
And this is really, wonderful, which you just mentioned, that it just sets the boundaries for yourself,
Mhm.
because it just is describe who you are as a person. And when you know your, core values, when you know your values, or your principles, who you stand with, so you understand yourself, better. Hello, John. How are you doing, man?
I'm well, buddy. Happy Thursday to you.
Thank you. So, how's you been? How's your day so far?
Well, here it's about 10:30 in Phoenix, Arizona in the morning. So it's off to a good start, brother. It's off to a good start. I'm excited. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, John, I was just reading your introduction, and I was kind of amazed by you have a pretty much a different kind of terminology, mind mappineering. So, tell us a little bit
Right.
about what is it?
Yeah, well, for those well, let me just tell you a little bit about how mind mapping came into my life first. Um, Born and raised in Los Angeles, California, was blessed to get an athletic scholarship to play football at Washington State University. Go Cougs, my whole team. From there, I went on to play several years of professional football. Then career ended with the reconstruction of my right knee, got into the mortgage industry. Built a pretty robust business, actually the largest mortgage brokerage in Southern California at the time. Living a millionaire like lifestyle, made more money than I did playing professional football. Actually, Things were great. Big houses, big cars, all of that stuff. But then I lost everything in a mortgage meltdown and the Great Recession of 2008. And I say everything, I mean everything. I mean, career, job, family, houses, cars. I lost my sense of self and identity. I mean, I was really rock bottom. It's a
Mm,
tough part of my life, one of the most challenging parts. And I had to move back to my mother's house. And inside my mom's, when I went to my mom's house, all I took with me was my mountain bike, a gym bag with some athletic clothes in it to stay in shape, and a big box that had all of these motivational books, CDs, and tapes in there because I knew I had to get back into that box to rebuild my life again. And one book was in there. It was called the Mind Map book by Tony Buzan. I
mm,
don't remember ever buying it myself. I think somebody may have given it to me or something, but for whatever reason, it resonated with me, and I made probably the most important decision I ever made, or at least one of them. And I decided to mind map all of the contents that was in that big box. So I mind mapped books like Think and Grow Rich, Power of Now, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and Limited Power. I mean, all of the books that most people regard as some of the best self-help books.
mm.
I actually spent time actually mind mapping those things out, and it really transformed my life. Just what mind mapping was able to do. And mind mapping essentially is just it's a visual information management tool, meaning that whatever you're thinking about, you need to make a decision, problem solve, goal set, deal with stuff in your past, decide on trips. I mean, whatever's going on in here, mind map, in my opinion, and my staunch belief, is the best tool to get whatever's going on in here out of it so you can properly see all of the different perspectives of whatever it is you got to think about, whatever you're considering. And when I started to realize that, and when I was mind mapping those books, the information resonated deeper than it ever did before because I wasn't just mindlessly reading or just underlining things or highlighting things. I was really actively engaged in what I was reading because I was looking for keywords or short phrases to add to my mind map. So it
Mm.
was causing me to really understand what Tony Robbins was really saying and Les Brown was really saying. These guys were really talking about more so than it did in the past. And from there, I've been using mind mapping ever since. This was 2009, and mind mapping has enabled me to not just rebuild my life, but man, I've been living a life of my dreams ever since. And I know it's primarily due to the clarity that mind mapping has given me and how I've been specifically using the tool. Um, and when COVID hit in 2020,
Mm.
I got called to just with being quarantined and stuck at home. I said, now is the time for me to start writing books and start sharing this information about the power of what mind mapping is doing into my life. And since COVID, I've written 10 books. I've become an international best-selling author. I did a TEDx talk that's on YouTube. And I built online courses. I have a coaching community now where I'm just helping people use this tool called mind mapping. Now, my style is different. Those who have ever heard of mind mapping
Mm.
think of mind mapping as a brainstorming, a note-taking, or a project management kind of tool. From what I've been understanding in my years of in the mind mapping world around the world is that I'm the only one that's really promoting and teaching and sharing mind mapping for personal development, to use it as a personal development tool. So I wanted to kind of distinguish the traditional style from how I'm using it, which made me coin the phrase Mappineering. So my style is Mappineering, where it's more using a mind map for personal development, problem solving, decision making, goal setting, and things of that nature, versus how traditionally people around the world are using mind mapping as a tool.
Right, right, right. And that's really wonderful that how you came up with such an idea. You have been there and you have done that. And from that point, you just develop this kind of system. That's really amazing. So I just there was a one thing just came to my mind that you have said a wonderful thing that most of the people use mind mapping for the other stuff. So what you
Hmm.
did, you transform that all that kind of thing, mind mapping, and you transform it to self development thing. Got it.
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. So John, go us through a little bit about how does it work. Does it
Mhm.
involves a chart, a diagrams, where a flow diagrams. So what does
Yeah.
it look like exactly?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Well, in that process of when I first started discovering it and rebuilding my life, after I spent about 3 months of mind mapping all of those self-help books, I come to realize a couple things that all of these people were, all of these thought leaders were talking about. For one, is that, life is just simply meant to be loved. I mean, that is really the goal of all of these amazing motivational speakers
Mm,
and best-selling authors, is just giving us their perspective on how we should love our life or can love our life more.
exactly.
So I got really clear that that was the point. That now that I'm rebuilding my life, I realized that the goal is truly to love it. But then I also took from that process is that in order to love my life, I must get really clear on who I am. Who am I really? What's most important to me, really? What do I want in my life, really? Not on a surface level, but
Mm,
really deep. So I started developing what is called an I am mind map, where in the center, just to give you a visual idea, in the center of a blank piece of paper, I had it landscape. I just put in the middle, I am. This is who I am. Then I started spending time thinking about what are the key components of my life. What truly do I want my life to be about? And after months and hours of grappling with this, I came up that I am, then I put healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy as subtopics around that central topic, right? Then from there, I started thinking about, well, what does really health mean? Health is so general. Let me break that down a little bit. So as I started thinking about what do I want to have excellent health in my life, I broke that down further to spiritual health, physical health, and mental health. So I added those as subtopics to the health topics that I had on my map. Then I went down to wealth. I said, all right, well, I want to be wealthy, but is it truly just money? What
mm,
else do I want an abundance of? Wealth means an abundance of something, not just money. So I started really thinking about that, and I came up with I wanted to have an extraordinary wealth of positive emotions, specialized knowledge, and freedom. So I was like, okay, I broke
mm,
those things down. So I moved over to the other side of the map and said, all right, I want to be successful, but what does that mean? What areas of success are really most important to me? Then I looked at it and I said, well, I want to have successful relationships. I want to have successful rewards, and I want to have successful results. So I added those to my I am mind map. Then I moved over to happiness, which was the other one on there. I said, so
yeah.
what does happiness mean to me? And I really started to think about that. What would truly need to happen for me to really be happy? Then I landed on, I need to be blessed for my past, meaning when I think about my past, the goods and the bads, I need to be blessed for those experiences. That I don't need to look at my past with guilt, regret. I need to really be blessed for all of those experiences. Then I also need to feel grateful for my future. So everything that's coming to me, I need to feel grateful for all of the stuff that's coming. But then I need to feel both of those in the present moment now. So I
Mm,
come to realize that for me to be happy, I need to be blessed from my past, grateful for my future, right here, right now. Then I'll be happy. So I added blessed, grateful, and present on my subtopics of the happiness part of my mind map. So that was like the basis of, and I started to realize, Atif, that this is like my constitution. This is like my commandments. These are my commandments. This is my GPS. This is my playbook. This is my
Exactly.
everything on how I need to live my life. Now that I got clear on the core of what I want my life to be about, it was eye-opening to me. So what I started to do is really started to break down, like using my I am mind map, what do I need to do daily to achieve excellent spiritual health, excellent physical health. So I was using this mind map and started really mapping out the actual tasks and duties and responsibilities that I need to do myself on a daily to achieve each one of those things I just reviewed on my I am mind map. And man, it was so illuminating and powerful for me that I went from rags to riches. I mean, finish that story with my mom. I was, homeless
Mhm.
by myself. I mean, it was really bad. It was dark, but I transformed my life to making over $250,000 a year in income in less than 8 months. And I know that was primarily solely responsible that the clarity that a mind map gave me to really see myself and see what I wanted my life to be about. So, in short, when you look at mind maps or anything you're mind mapping, it's just a matter of just really getting your thoughts out. Where most people that I find that are stressed, that are dealing with some mental challenges, that are maybe afraid of some things, that are depressed, that are confused, that are, all of those mental challenges and emotional experiences we have, a lot of it, in my experience with coaching with my students and working with my team, is because they got so much stuff in here that's so, doing all of this. It's just chaos, in their mind, that a mind map will cause people to actually sort all of those things out, whatever they're thinking about, which gives them a sense of calm, which gives them a sense of relief, because now it's not swirling out of control in here. It's now in
Mm.
control in a visual form where they can start to see different things that they couldn't see otherwise when it was just stuck in their mind. So it's a visual tool that's very, very powerful.
That's actually really great. And you know what's the best thing about that is when you do such kind of exercise, it just brings clarity to you. When you
Yes.
put all your thoughts down to the paper, it just brings
Hmm.
so much clarity that now you know what you need to do. That's absolutely
Exactly.
wonderful. So, John, I would like to, go back in the past few years when
Hmm.
John was a little bit younger, a few years
Yeah.
back when you were there and you have shared that, you hit the rock bottom, you are at that stage. So, what was that like, and how did you manage to get out of it? Because we have seen most of the people, they just stuck there and they spend their whole life there. They just
Right.
didn't have the, what should I say, the courage. They didn't have the
Mhm.
mustered up, due to some certain kind of experiences, they didn't manage to get up. So what was that
Right.
trigger point? How did you get up?
Well, it was, it's a great question. What compelled me to get up is that not letting my loved ones down,
Mhm.
not letting my God down. I realized that, my children, people that love me, wanted to see the best of me.
Absolutely.
Um, I guess my kids, they needed to see the best dad. And I wasn't being that person. I wasn't being that person. And to my God, my higher power. I'm not necessarily a religious guy, but I really believe in there's something, some force that created this earth that is blessing me to live every day. And that experience, and that relationship that I had, I didn't want to disappoint my God by not being all that I could be. And sorry for the emotions, but it just reminds me of that moment. that I had to have a conversation with myself that, I got this one life. I'm blessed with this one life. And I realized that I can choose how I can experience this one life. And, there is a day of judgment, when we pass away and we go meet our maker. I think that's going to be a question that's going to be asked. I don't know if it's going to be, did you believe in certain religions and all of this stuff? But I believe that the one question that's probably absolutely for sure is, what did you do with the blessings and the gifts that I gave you to make the world a better place? Did you really take advantage of those experiences? Did you really impact others to help their experience be better? Or did you allow fear? Did you allow doubt? Did you allow the devil? Did you allow, addiction? Did you allow all of these nonsense to minimize the impact that I sent you to the earth to do? Once I got clear with that conversation, I was like, I have to do whatever it takes to rebuild my life, to live my best life and cause the best change that I can, not just in my life, my kids' life, but spend my life trying to impact the world, in various ways, which has been giving me peace, So to all of those who may be listening, who are stuck, who don't know how to, change their circumstances that they don't want. I just encourage you to realize that you have that God-given ability to make decisions on how you want to live your life. I mean, every day you can choose what to think about. Every day you can choose how to feel. You can choose what to do. This is the human power that our God has given us, which is different than other animals and living beings.
Exactly.
A dog doesn't choose where he can go eat. A lion is not choosing, no, I don't feel like eating right now, or anything of that nature. But we as living beings and creations, we do have that power to make conscious choice on how we want to experience our lives. So with that being said, just realize that you can make a conscious choice to change the whole circumstance that whatever you're dealing with. And I come to realize that there's no better tool to help you do that than a mind map. Because it will take all of the things that's causing you angst or causing you confusion and help you clarify that so you can be empowered and have the confidence and courage to do what you got to do to make change in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can totally relate to that. And I can totally feel that. And when you were telling your story, the emotions are a little bit high. I can totally understand that. But this is that point which will decide for, I think, for everyone, that what you need to do. That is the
Mhm.
turning point, and you need to decide that, yeah, man, I need to get up.
Yeah.
And absolutely,
I would like to share a tool. There's an now out of all of the thousands, again, mind maps could be used for anything, anything that you can think about. But the most important one is the I am mind map. So you want
Hmm.
to start with an I am mind map. The other one that I would recommend people start to experience and play with is what I developed. It's called a five W's and H mind map. Five W's and H mind map. Very, very powerful for problem solving, decision making. It looks like this.
Hmm.
So let's just say you have a problem, for instance.
All
Take
right.
a blank piece of paper and set it landscape, put in the middle, just whatever you want to title that problem is. Just what is the word, or whatever you want to identify that problem is. It could be a picture, it could be whatever.
Hmm.
But whatever you are identifying as a problem in your life. From there, from around there, you want to put who, what, when, where, why, and how around that central topic title of your problem. Then from there, just brainstorm it out. Go to who. Who's involved with this problem? Who shouldn't be involved with this problem? Who is this problem impacting? Then once you kind of brainstorm all of the who's around the problem, then go down to the what. What actually is this problem? What is occurring? What shouldn't be occurring? Then once you finish there, you go down to the next one. Where? Where is this problem happening? Where should it be happening?
Hmm.
Then once you finish that, you go to the when. You know, when is this problem happening? When should it? When? And just start asking yourself a bunch of when questions around that problem. Then you go to why. Why is this problem happening? Why should it be happening? Why shouldn't it be happening? Then you move over to how. How is this problem happening? How is it affecting me? How is it impacting me? You know, and you start doing all of these brainstorming, this five W's and H around your problem, Atif. Yes, always, always, when people go through this process and step back, the solution to the problem always reveals itself. Always, because you've looked at
Absolutely.
all of the different perspectives of the problem. And
Absolutely.
most people have challenges because they need to solve the problem, but they're only trying to solve it from a minimal perspective or from their own perspective
Exactly.
versus really contemplating and brainstorming those five W's and H's of the problem. And when I work with clients and I work with students, it's amazing. They come to me with problems and you can see the tense stress. You can feel their energy that the problem is really getting the best of them. And when I walk them through this process, you can see this relief, this calm comes over people, primarily because the problem is no longer in here. The problem is now out there. So it's not like a personal problem anymore. It's like a problem that they're now looking at so they don't have that attachment to it like they used to have, which opens them up to receive the possible solutions, to that problem. And then you can do this also with decision making.
Exactly.
Just like I went through problems, you can do the same thing with just put the name of the decision. I got to plan a trip. I got to decide what college to go to. I got to decide a new career or to leave a relationship. Whatever that may be, put that decision in the middle and just go who, what, when, where, why, and how. Spend time really mentally, brainstorming each one of those topics. And then once you feel complete, step back from it, push it away from you, and look at the totality of that mind map, and you'll have a greater perspective and greater confidence about the decision that you need to make, whatever it is you're contemplating. So those are just a couple of them, but I gotta, I've been doing this for about 15 years now, daily. But those are the key ones that I am mind
Hmm.
map and your five W's and H mind map are those that I think are the most impactful that I recommend you and your listeners to start exploring and exercising like right away. Again, there's a bunch of mind mapping software that's available. I'm a big proponent of MindMeister. I'm a partner with them. They're the best online platform, I believe, in the world because of you can
Hmm.
put attachments and YouTube links to it. There's a lot of things you can do with your mind map. Um, but you can simply just grab a piece of paper, a napkin, and a pencil, and just do this, what I just told you to do to, get some immediate, relief or get clarity at whatever you're thinking about or need to come to a conclusion for. And I'm here to help. I mean, that's my thing. This is not a money thing for me, by the grace of God, I put myself in a pretty good position where it's not a money thing. It's a message thing for me. I
Hmm.
really want to cause and create positive change in the world for the reasons I stated before. But I say that because I encourage you and all of your listeners that if you guys have any questions or need any of my help or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And just you can just reference the podcast, your
Yeah,
podcast, that hey, I
absolutely.
heard you on the T's podcast, and I promise to give you some extra love and attention, and do everything I can to help you integrate some of these things in your life because I firmly believe that it will cause some positive change in your life, some way, somehow. It will.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's really wonderful. And your framework 5 W's is really
An
powerful,
H.
and for NH, it's really powerful because when you put all your thoughts into that, and you put down and you ask your questions and you got all the answers, then majority, almost like I think 60 or 70% in the cases, you realize that it's not a problem at all. It's just your
Yeah.
mind. It's just your
Yep.
mind boggling with you, and it's not a problem at all at the first place.
Right.
So, more than
Right.
50%, it just wipes away right off the bat. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely love that, man.
Yeah.
So, so John, tell us a little bit about your experience at the TEDx. How was it, man?
Woo, man. Well, grace of God, I have a wonderful, wonderful executive assistant, now partner named Linda Rittenhouse. She's the one that actually submitted over like 90 different applications. Yeah, it's not easy to get a TEDx talk, because it's
Mm,
just very hard to get. But once you actually get it, you actually have like 2 months to actually prepare for your actual talk. And, so I would recommend for those who want to do a TEDx talk, which I can more than happy help, share more about this on another maybe session or something with you about the
exactly.
details. But I would recommend that if you have intentions on doing a TEDx talk, start really getting clear on what you want to communicate in your TEDx talk. And I would say listen to create it from a way on what would be the most impact to the audience, not necessarily based on what you want to say. Because
Mm,
a lot of people want a TEDx talk because they just want to say something, but it may not be impactful to the audience. So while you're submitting these applications, which it took me almost a year to get one, I would say start refining your talk and figure out your unique message because we all have a story of value that can impact other people.
exactly.
But I would say start really refining your message to a way that when you get to the stage, because after you get your talk, like I said, you only got 2 months and it gets really intense because they give you a coach and you're
Mm,
kind of working through it and trying to figure out how you're going to say it. It has to be less than 16 minutes long. So, and you have to, you don't have to use props, but when I did my TEDx talk, not only did I have a slide deck that I was going through that had, my mind map stuff in it, but I also had a board and an easel, and I also had a big box on stage. So I had all of these different props and things. And that's on YouTube, by the way. And it kind
mm,
of goes more deep into my story on how mind mapping came into my life and how I used it to really transform my life. So, for people that really want to know more about that whole how mind mapping came into my life and how I've been using it, my TEDx talk was really designed around that. And my I am mind map, really, how this story I just shared with you briefly, as far as how I've been using it as my personal guide. My I am mind map, I look at daily, I look at weekly. It has been evolving, since 2010, late 2009, early 2010 is when I started developing this I am mind map. And I probably have maybe over 500 different versions of it. Because as things come in my life and things change,
mm,
new opportunities presents itself, new relationships, new whatever comes in my life, I've always had to evolve that I am mind map. The core principles didn't never change, but maybe some of the strategies didn't change. And here's another thing I think that just flashed in my mind that's very important about an I am mind map and why I really encourage everybody to create one. And I got books on this on Amazon. I got some online courses that are designed to walk people through this in a more of a deep way, giving them some thought-provoking questions about each one of the health, wealth, and success. So by the end of those courses, you're really clear on your I am mind map.
mm.
But I find that that clarity on who you are gives people confidence, to know what they want to do with their life, but it also gives people the power to have boundaries. Boundaries. And I find that a lot of people, who aren't really clear on who they are, they can allow things and circumstances to affect who they are. People come into your life, you date people, you get jobs, all of these things that come into your life that the I am mind map will give you such clarity and empowerment that you'll know at the start if this is the right relationship or not, and be able to make that adjustment. If this is the right job or not,
Mm.
if this is the right circumstance or not. And you'll be able to say with congruity that, hey, wait a minute, this is not going to work, for me. Well, why? Because it's not who I am. I'm very
Exactly.
clear,
Exactly.
who I am now. And there's so many people, especially young people, that I've been working with in higher education. I've been doing a lot of talks in high schools and colleges
Mm.
here in the US, to really help students start to define who they are themselves versus allowing the environment or circumstances or other people define who they are. Now they're consciously making decisions. So I'm finding now with feedback that I'm getting from students that I'm working with that they're able to withstand peer pressure. No, I'm not taking that drug. I'm not doing that activity because it's not in alignment with who I am and where I'm trying to go. And they can say it from a standpoint of strength. Like, boom, I've
Exactly.
made a conscious decision on what I want my life to be about. So that's another powerful reason why I suggest people, regardless of where you're at in your life, if you could be a millionaire, which I do have a client that's a millionaire that really loves the fact that he created an I am mind map because he saw areas of his life that he was neglecting, that he was not thinking about, yeah, he's some parts of his I am mind map, he was hitting it out the park. It's A plus. But there was other parts in his relation on his mind maps, i.e. relationships that he was failing. He was really failing. He was below par in that, and he didn't really understand it or see it as much. But until he created his I am mind map, after he created it, he was like, well, wait a minute, I'm not as successful as I thought I was. I'm
Mm.
not as doing as good as I thought I was because I'm now seeing that there's some very powerful areas in my life, important areas to me that I've been ignoring and not giving enough attention to. So regardless of where you're at in your life, an I am mind map is really a powerful tool that I guarantee you're gonna find it beneficial in some way.
Absolutely, absolutely wonderful. And this is really, wonderful, which you just mentioned that it just sets the boundaries for yourself
Hmm.
because it just is describe who you are as a person. And when you know your, core values, when you know your values or, your principles, who you stand with, so you understand yourself, better. And absolutely
Yeah,
love that. Totally, totally
yeah,
love that. So, John, before we wrap this up, I just have one or two couple of questions.
yeah.
So, for everyone, most of the we get it. There's a certain type of people, who are just listening right now and who are just, saying that, okay, John, we got your point. You have to be certain about all your things. Okay,
Hmm.
we have drawn our mind map, but we just find ourselves too lazy, or not too active on the action side.
Right.
We draw our map, but we
Hmm.
struggle in the action phase where the actual works needs to be done. So for that
Hmm.
set of people, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, a couple things. The first thing that I would say is that if you're unhappy with an area of your life,
Hmm.
um, regardless of what that area may be, you have to determine if those emotions and that experience is how you want the rest of your life to be. If you're fine and comfortable with not taking action to change your life, that's your choice. But I
Exactly.
hope that if that's your choice, you're not complaining about it. Because we have a lot of people that complain about a bunch of stuff but don't do nothing.
Exactly.
Right. So if that's your choice, that's fine. But if you are one of those people that really want to live a better quality of life, I would encourage you to start mapping out those feelings that you want to have when you actually become the person that you want to be. So if, you see yourself, married, or whatever, and a parent, what are some of those feelings that you anticipate having in a successful marriage, with kids? Start visualizing and start mapping out that which you want from an emotional standpoint. Because on my I am process, let me just say this. I have three levels of my I am system. The first level, level one, is just to get people to understand what the I am mind map is. Um, Start to just basically put anything and everything that in their mind out on their I am mind map as it relates to health, wealth, success, and happiness, just to get them familiar with an I am mind map, kind of build the template of it. The
Mm.
second level as to where now we go through and actually prioritize a lot of the things you put on your map. What's really most important when you talk about having excellent spiritual health, you put 10 different items. Now let's put those in a hierarchy. What is on a level of 1 to 10, which ones, are tens, which ones are ones. Then what we do is go to the next level in that, to where we start to determine action steps. Right, what do you need to do to actually start praying more or meditating more or fasting or whatever that may be in your spiritual component. And we do that for everyone in level two. Then in level three, that's when I really take people's mind maps and I have them create what is called like an I am script, where it's written out now. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I'm successful. I'm happy. I'm healthy spiritually. I'm healthy mentally. I'm healthy physically. So I have them write them out in a form of like declarations or incantations. Then I guide people on how to actually record themselves actually repeating and their I am mind map. So they record themselves talking to themselves about who they put on their I am mind map. And I encourage people to do that every day. Once you get to that point, just wake up or go to bed at night listening to yourself tell you about your I am mind map with the emotions that you want to experience. And that process alone, I've been finding really inspires people, touches people, moves people to
Mm.
take action who, may not, are struggling to take action. When they actually start to embody, wait a minute, I can do this. I am this. And when they hear themselves say it to themselves,
Exactly.
it's a total different, it's not somebody else telling you to do something. You're hearing your voice telling you that you are excellent spiritual health because of this, this, and this, and this. You are extraordinary wealth of specialized knowledge because of this, this, and this. And you're talking to yourself about it. It's very, very empowering tool, is what I encourage people, who are struggling trying to take action, kind of deal. That help?
That's absolutely wonderful. And it just reminds me of one thing, that you are listening to yourself, because most of the time, people are in their head, their voices are,
Hmm.
on the negative side. You can't do this, you are not
Yeah,
better. But when they
you
are
suck.
listening,
Yeah.
yeah, you suck. But when they are listening to the positive side of themselves, it just counters that beliefs too. So it
Yep.
just helps both ways. It puts them into
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
action, and it's also counters their own negative, self beliefs or
Hmm.
self limitations.
Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally wonderful, man. So, John, one last question which I love to ask, from my guest, is that what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Ooh, yeah, great question. That is a big part of my I am mind map, is to hopefully, with my efforts of sharing the power of mapping and the use of mind maps, that people I've done my part of really letting people know about mappineering, this I am process and movement. And I'm hopeful that, it becomes a global kind of thing, to where people around the world are seeing, the power of an I am mind map, and not for my acknowledgement at all, but the legacy I really want is to hopefully be the person that really kind of started this transformation, I guess you will, for people to self-actualize, because that's really what the I Am Mind Map is designed to do, is to help people self-actualize themselves to be really be fulfilled on who they are, knowing that they're living their purpose is really what I'm very passionate about. And I believe this is why I'm on this earth. You know, all of the stuff that I had in my past, I truly believe has led me to be this guy to deliver this message to the world. And every day I get up with that passion to live that purpose, to share this power, to share my story, to share what's possible for people who want to really live better lives. Here's a tool that can help them. So I'm hopeful that my mission will ultimately leave a powerful legacy that lasts for generations, that really transform lives, very similar to that of like Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie, all of these guys that, have started some movements and created some change that are no longer with us, but still their programs and their books are still selling like crazy. I'm hopeful that I can be one of those guys, when it's all said and done.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Totally love that. And on that note, John, thank you so much for being on the show. It was absolute pleasure, and I really love the
Thank
whole
you.
conversation, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm always here for you. Again, anybody in your audience, you can find me at johndiggs.com. I'm on all social media platforms. Just reach out to me. Let me know where you heard me from. And I'm here to help you. Thank you so much for having me, man. I love you. I appreciate you. And God bless. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. Take care. Have a good day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.